Welcome to the Companies House Security Review Part 2. If you haven't yet seen Part 1, you can do so at ramblingrant.co.uk and search for the article entitled Corporate Identity Theft. So let's just review. The issues were no password hashing, weak passwords, cross-site scripting and cross-site request forgery, broken or no SSL, and session hijacking. Now currently passwords are stored and sent in plain text. Now this is inherently insecure and it needed to be addressed as a matter of urgency. The response? Well, unfortunately it's still not clear whether Companies House now store their passwords securely and they won't comment further. Reading between the lines though, it is likely that they're still storing them in plain text. Having admitted that they're insecure, and this being a government agency, it is embarrassing for them, and you'd expect if they've made any significant changes, they'd now be promoting that fact rather than hiding it. Make of that what you will. Let's move on. Weak passwords. Passwords can only be between 4 and 8 characters in length, and they cannot contain non-alphanumeric characters. The response? Well, thankfully Companies House have now upgraded their password requirements. Passwords must now be between 8 and 32 characters in length and must contain at least 2 numbers. You still can't use non-alphanumeric characters, and it doesn't enforce upper or lower cases. So although it's a good start and undoubtedly more secure than it was, it is still quite a way off what we would consider to be best practice. Cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting exploits the trust a user has in a web page. For example, if you load a page at Companies House, you'd expect all of that content to have been delivered by Companies House. By allowing cross-site scripting throughout the site, a hacker can inject malicious payload and take control of that session. Cross-site request forgery, on the other hand, exploits the trust a web page has in a user's browser. For example, if you want to remove a director from your limited company, you have to follow a set procedure. An attacker can simulate that request and the site simply accepts it as if it were you. The response? Well, again, I'm pleased to say Companies House have resolved all of the issues I put to them within just a few days, and I'm not aware of any outstanding issues relating to XSS or XSRF. It still isn't clear how or why they were missed during the penetration test, and again, they still won't comment. My only concern is the issues were resolved too quickly. I know this sounds ridiculous, but bear with me. Developers can use a site-wide cross-site scripting filter, which essentially sanitizes anything in and out, if necessary, that could be deemed malicious. Now, on the surface, that might sound like a good idea, but it does introduce a few problems. For instance, passwords can't be or can't contain non-alphanumeric characters, some of which could be treated as dangerous. So obviously the filter kicks in, converts them to their safe entities, and then that is then stored to the database. The problem with that is it breaks the hash and then the user can't log in. The only way to bypass that is to ensure that you don't accept any non-alphanumeric characters in a password. So the two could be linked. It's highly likely that they are. If that's the case, the site-wide filter would have to be disabled in future, and obviously they'd have to look to sanitize each field as and where it's used. Broken SSL. The current SSL implementation is very, very weak. Some pages which need SSL currently don't have it, and some pages which use SSL are broken because of insecure references in the document object model. But more importantly, the SSL sessions aren't maintained as you navigate from page to page. Now the response, unfortunately, nothing has changed in the last month, certainly not that I can see. The site continues to send private, confidential data across the wire without any form of encryption. Again, I've asked Companies House to comment, and unfortunately they declined. Session hijacking. Companies House use cookieless sessions, which means they're maintained by a unique token in the address bar. Now, as you can see highlighted in red, the string starting 1667E is the unique reference assigned to my session on that day. Now that token, coupled with the lack of SSL, means it's possible to hijack an account and take control of a session. Now the response to this, unfortunately, despite the risks, it's still vulnerable. I can't stress enough how important it is that this be resolved as soon as physically possible. At the time of this video going to press, it is currently possible to gain access to any web check or web filing account without a username or password. I'm in the process of trawling through mountains of data collated from server logs, PCs, ISPs and proxies. The early indications are it's not only possible, but it may have already contributed to cases of corporate identity theft. It gets worse. Last week, Companies House released a new and supposedly improved password reset facility. Rather than send your password in plain text, they now send a link containing a unique token or link ID which allows you to change your password. If it's implemented correctly, it's without a doubt far more secure. Sadly, they've made yet another crucial mistake and it prompted another call to Companies House. On the 5th of November, I spoke to Gareth Thomas. He's the IT security manager at Companies House. Unfortunately, he couldn't assist at the time, so he passed the call to Mark Fairhurst, who's the IT manager. Now, I explained the situation to him and he did promise to investigate. A few minutes later, I had a call from a Mark Williams. Now, I had never spoken to Mark Williams before. I wasn't aware of his position at Companies House, so I asked him his name, his title or position, and a contact number, and his response was support, and then he hesitated and ended with person who checks the code before it goes live. I'm not sure what to make of that, but bear with me. I had to explain the issue again, and unfortunately he couldn't replicate it. He didn't seem to grasp what the issue was. By this point, I'm a little bit bemused, very frustrated and disgusted, to be perfectly honest with you, that it's taken this long to get to this stage. So I've offered to walk Mr. Williams through the process of exploiting their own site. Eventually, we did get there. He saw the exploit, he managed to replicate the issue at his end, and he obviously is now set out to resolve it. Let me show you a demo. So here we are at the Companies House homepage. First things first, let's log in. Now we'll be using two test accounts for the purposes of this demo. This is test account number 1, and the password at the moment is password 12. So as you can see, we're logged in and viewing that account's profile. So let's log out, and this time select forgot your password. Now what this will do is email a unique token to the email address we've just entered, and I'll paste that in the address bar now. So there you can see there's a unique token which at the moment is still current because we haven't changed the password. So let's go ahead and change it to password 10. And confirm it. Okay, so the password's now been changed to password 10, and you'll note the token ID, the link ID has now expired. So let's try and log in again with the new password just to confirm it's worked. And the password is now password 10. Okay, so as you can see, we're now logged in again and we're back to the account profile page. So this time let's log out and then return back to the password reset page. And as you can see, the link ID has now expired. This time, we'll request to change a password of a different account. Email's just arrived. And you'll see we have a new link ID, which is completely unrelated to the first account. But this time, let's bring up Chrome Debugger. If we inspect the Submit button, you'll notice a link ID parameter. It's in the address bar and on the right hand side. So what happens if we inject the now supposedly expired link ID from the previous request? Let's bring the keyboard back up to show you. And this time we'll choose new password and 12 this time. Now you'll note we should be changing the second test account, but if we hit submit, we've actually changed the first test account. We didn't need to know the email address, the username or the password. We've simply managed to bypass any authentication and log straight in as that user. So let's see if it's actually worked. Now remember, the password should be password 10. If this has worked, it will be new password 12. Okay, so we're logged in, and there's the account profile. Okay, so we've proven it works, but it's time consuming and it requires debugging tools, although many modern browsers have already got them built in. So can we streamline the process and remove the need for those plugins or extensions? Let's have a look at another quick demo. At the end of my call with Mr. Williams, he seemed to suggest that without the necessary skill set, the tools and the token, it'd be very difficult to pull this kind of exploit off. So as you can see, here's one of the reset password links that we used earlier on in the video, and you can quite clearly read password reset link has already been used. Now this form, had we not have used the code already, would now allow us to enter the password on 2 occasions to confirm and then make the change in the database. Now the problem being, this link ID here isn't expiring. So let's put that in the clipboard and minimize that and have a quick look at a form I've just created. Now this resides locally, this isn't on the web, but it's largely copied directly from the Companies House website. The only difference is the link ID parameter that used to be a hidden form value is now an input text box. So let's paste the link ID and let's type password 12 and again password 12. Submit. And as you can see, the password has been changed for, and it even gives you the email address that's now vulnerable. In summary, I think serious questions need to be asked of everyone involved. The development team, are they up to the job? The management and security teams, were they aware of these problems? Do they understand the risk? And more importantly, do they have the technical knowledge to make sure that it doesn't happen again? The penetration tests, were they actually carried out and by whom? The risk assessment and mitigation, why is the system still vulnerable after this length of time? But perhaps more crucially, if this adheres to the government security policy framework, could these problems extend beyond Companies House? Thank you for watching. I do hope it's given you some insight into the state of affairs at Companies House. If there are any updates on the topic, you can find them at ramblingrant.co.uk.